Today, the call is it's our get it done call. We were going to work on background checks. I have heard from Melissa. They are with Melissa and Brittany, Stanford Sierra Family and Youth and Family Services out of California. And they are saying that they don't even know that they have the background checks in their site. So I'm going to go into their site and check that out and build it, because it starts to me, when I think about background checks, it is a multi-record table, and the functionality that we'll talk, there's nothing special about it. So the functionality that I talk about really relates to any other multi-record table. So any sort of like reports that you might have to do all the time, or parent education, or I don't know. Yeah, with parent education, the home study table, right? Like persons in home, documents. So I've done some things in the last day or two around documents a lot with the checklist. So we'll get to as much as we can talk about today, but the concepts totally apply, same exact thing, regardless of which site that I'm looking at. So I'm going to jump in, if you guys are okay, Melissa, into your site and check on the table structure. So table structure is always under settings, tables, and fields. And then I'm just going to use the browser's find function to look for it, which I'm assuming Melissa already knows it's not there. So I don't know if it should have always been there. So she's thinking maybe there's this potential that she deleted it or disabled. So I'm going to check. Under advanced options, I can show disabled tables, which are obviously in gray, those that are deleted. So I also don't see it here. Okay, like you, and I'm sure you had checked this also. And so it just doesn't appear to be here. So that's fine. We're then going to add it, because again, there's not anything special about that. So to create a new table under advanced options, I'm in the table section and I'll create it here. There's one other way to create a new table, and it's when you're adding a subform. But generally, I would recommend kind of starting from the top when you're doing these things. So we'll put it under family. In my master site, background checks is not under the case. It is directly underneath the family. That means then it's not case specific. I also have a copy of the background checks up underneath home study, so that you could add background checks specific to that home study. To me, it gets a little deep in the site. Like in the hierarchy of the database structure, when it is, under the family, under the case, under the home study, then you've got background checks. I think that we've had challenges, and it would be your agencies really specifically that would challenge this auto action doesn't work as expected. This, like finding, probably even the checklist might have a little bit of challenge when it gets 4 levels deep. So to Melissa, to Brittany, where would you like to put the background checks? I think it might be more successful up directly under the family or under the case. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about where it should go.
Melissa's having difficulty with her video and audio, but we would like to do it underneath the family, directly
under the family. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And when you guys are making new multi-record tables, it's just important to sort of think like you're building the database. So it is really the structure of how things are going to interact. I think, like I said, the 4 levels deep, I see challenges with what it can do. So keeping things at the top, it then presents its own sort of like, well, how do you know which background check goes with which home study or things like that? And we can figure out ways to limit visibility to them while it's also all open, right? So whether they expire or things like that, you can play with that. So we're going to build this right up underneath the families. I'm going to hit that as the parent table. And I will call it background checks. Do you guys prefer background checks or clearances?
We can do background checks.
Okay. And then you guys won't see these two options. I have like developer privileges, whatever that is. It really just makes things a little bit more confusing for me, to be quite honest. But has multiple record checks or multiple records per parent is what we're trying to do, because there will be 1 or 2 or 10, depending. SAM by default is going to create sort of these basic audit fields. I'm sure I've talked to probably all of you guys, but I'll say it here as well, as these particular fields, I don't like to use them to automate things from. I prefer for you guys to be very specific with like a start or an end date or some sort of process date within the tracking that you're trying to keep. Because I think it becomes very specific rather than when things get entered. That to me, like, especially for you guys, and maybe, yeah, sometimes there's historical data. So even agencies who have used the system for years and years will sometimes find old paperwork that they're transferring to electronic files. And so nothing that's even coming off an Excel spreadsheet, but it's entered later, but it really happened before. And to me, using these as just how users are interacting with the system is the best idea. So building tables then. The easiest way to build a multi-record table is from the table itself under advanced options, then really advanced options. You can do multi-record forms setup. This builds the container form and which shows multi-records. So it would show all 10 background checks if you had that many. And it also connects the add, edit, and details form, a single other form that allows you to add one record at a time or edit one record at a time. In the beginning, I like to mirror them so that they're the exact same. And then Melissa or Brittany, which one of your cover pages would you like this to go under? Is it this original? Maybe you want it under multiple also. But here we can choose one. I don't know all your acronyms anymore. Brittany, you with me?
Sorry, I thought I muted myself.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep the original PPU, because right now that is our test site, and then we can move it over.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. And curious if you happen to have a family record that is a test record under that, where we can access that cover page. If you'll,
It'll be Jack test.
Zach test.
Sorry, Jack.
Jack test. Okay.
Jack-o'-lantern.
Yep. Okay. Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Well, I don't know if you were on the background checks call on earlier this month, but everything was all Halloween themed. Gotta have fun here. So cool. So when you get to the form, notice that when you take that route, it takes you to the add, edit details first. So when I originally start setting these up, I like to keep sort of like set up the high level fields that you would also want to see on the overview form, and then unlink it. And when I open, so this shows where it is the add form, edit, and details form. It all happens to be the same form. And after save, so when I add a new background check record, it's also going to take me to the background checks overview. When I go into this, because they are linked, it's showing that it's linked here, right? So this big warning, it's a sibling form. The layout is derived from another form. So any fields that are on the add, edit details are going to also be on the overview. You can unlink it. So at first, I'm going to keep it, again, sort of high level. And so we want to see the name of the person, what state that background check is for, maybe when you started it, maybe some of the different fields that you need. And then when you get into more detailed information, I would go ahead and unlink it and just edit the add edit details form, because then you've got that detailed information that you need. So my assumption is we're going to add a field, and I used to have like, is it for app 1 or is it for app 2 as like a drop down list? And I have moved away from that into a text box field for the person's name, which can be automated from parent 1 and parent 2. It could be automated from each person in home that they add, but I like it's more clear. You don't need to remember who is parent 1 and parent 2 or mother and father or app 1 or whatever you're calling it. It's just very specific again. So I use the term either for, like who is it for, or the name of the person is what I title it. Melissa or Brittany, do you have thoughts on that?
We think that's a good idea. We would like to do it for who it's for.
Okay. Okay. So, and then this is a text. I'm pressing Control Enter just to move through that, because that's easy. That selection's very easy. And then I assume you're going to add the state also, in case they lived out of state, if they lived outside of California, or like for Nightlight's case, they work in, I think, 10 states, but families could be from all over, right? Or you've got out of state background checks that are one of 50 states plus out of the country, right?
Yeah.
I assume you need this as well.
Yes, please.
Okay. So in this case, I'm going to select it as a list, and your teams will know the list that you utilize frequently. There is a state list. So just to keep it, so you don't have to rebuild that, and keep everything consistent. So then talk to me about what other things do you want to collect?
So of course, we want to collect the major clearances. So the DOJ, FBI, whatever that other one is.
And do you guys do cans for child abuse?
But it's called CACI or CAIC, so Child Abuse Index Clearance.
Okay.
And then we also keep track of the criminal record statements, as well as the request for life scan forms. Because even though the family will take it to the place and they get their life scan, we need a copy of that fully completed form back.
Okay.
Returned to us.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to add you know what? I think that the group that's on today can follow me from here. It is going to be, I assume, let's say, that you want to add background checks to the checklist.
For question for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were gonna move away from the checklist,
Okay.
like style in our new portal build.
Okay.
At least on the like staff's end, we'll do one in the portal for the family.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of moving towards how North Homes sets theirs up,
Okay.
where it's more just like the page with all the fields that you need to look in, instead of more of a checklist style.
Got it. Okay. So, the one thing about if we build background checks on the checklist, it connects that ability for you to provide the live scan document to the family, where they can download that and then upload it to you.
Wonderful. Okay.
Right? The forms aren't going to do it as like linearly. like in a nice clean row, you could absolutely I'm like, you can absolutely, I think, like literally do this. Put at the top of a form, I'm looking right here on this particular form, it's not even shown. But at the top of some forms, you can have a template that you can link off to. So a little bit more complicated. The reason that I asked, so what I might do is set it up, and then you guys just, I won't set it to trigger, so that you can, one, we can show it on the video, and two, we can connect the date and the document field all together, and it'll all be set up if you choose to go that route.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
So first thing I'm going to do then for setting up on checklist is go over here to the table itself. New multi-record tables, or even if it's an old multi-record table, but you're just getting ready to utilize it on the checklist, probably isn't set up. So under advanced options, really advanced options, go to advanced table properties, and can it be used on the checklist? And I'm going to set that as yes. And all that does is allow it to be there. For some reason, this little pop-up takes a while to actually push all the way through, but it is done. So if I go to settings and then checklist configuration and then choose the family checklist, I can now add an item, and I'm going to put it on a brand new thing. I'll call it background checks. And now I'm going to create a new field because all of these are not going to be there, and select the background checks table, right? So it's only available here, sort of like basic ones. I feel like home study, case, maybe persons in home is in everybody's. It's very few tables really. So you need to do that first step of allowing multi-record tables to be there. So then, do you guys like if I call it like DOJ receive date? Is that very clear for your team?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay. And then I'm going to create a document. I'm going to move the receive date out of that and our received field. And I could do like clearance or check or whatever. What works for you guys? Maybe actually
Clearance?
you may already have it. So because an agency like all of you guys that are on the call, you've been using SAM for years, you may actually already have a document type. So I sort of went through toggling very quick, like I was going to create something new. That isn't always going to work for an agency that's been using SAM for years, because you probably have these things. So even if I build a new document type or document field, I could still select a document in the list if it already exists. Do you guys have any idea if they exist already?
Department of Justice, like we spelled it out completely.
Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Perfect. And so, okay, that's a good, do you want me to call it Department of Justice clearance receive date? Because that.
Yes, just to keep it uniform.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do that.
This part here, does anybody have any questions kind of on what I'm doing? Okay. So I'm going to show it to the client, and right here, Melissa and well, everybody on the call is where you would insert if there is a Department of Justice document that needs to be filled out. That's where you'll give that to the family. You could also say to them, you know, we need you to fill out this other form, and you would select here. If it is, you need to go to this website and fill XYZ out, you can also provide those instructions in here to the client. So I'm going to press save. So now that background check starts to be added. Let me go back one step. It is added all the way at the bottom down here. And again, I won't do any of the automatic settings. For people who do want to use background checks this way, I would set this when this to trigger when a who is it for is entered. And then tell it in here, when I set the record field title, gosh, this is funny. Sometimes the sites say this and sometimes they don't. So I need to check on this particular thing because mine is allowing this right now. And I think I've been in Nightlight's site and been doing stuff in their setup, and it's there where right here, I would like it to be showing us the name of background check for. And it's not, so I'm going to leave it empty right now, and get back with you guys specifically on that, because that is looking inconsistent to me. Cool. So I'm going to save that. So I'm going to go through and build the other ones here. And like I said, Brittany, you guys just don't use it. The fields will go back to the form and we'll build them out on that specific form too. Okay. I like to just do it here again because everything's connected. So every time that I need to just check my table, every time I'm going to add the FBI clearance. And what I'm going to end up doing is going over here. I'm going to create a new field and then select. Okay. So so I'm pulling that, show it to the clients, and press enter. And a couple more. I'm going to go here because I don't know what document type. Actually, I'm going to go right here. The document, family document type, checks. Nope, that took me to the field. Control F, child, donor, family document type. So I'm going to go to this list, and it is going to be called what? It's the criminal, not this child abuse index clearance. So I'm adding that.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just grabbing it because I didn't know what the acronym stands for. Okay. Create that document, get out received, and then there we go. Connecting. All right. And so we've got the criminal record. When I go here, is it this?
The criminal record statement.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Add item, other thing. Right. So it can, if you are clear with what you want to have added, I think this process doesn't take a really long time. It's really just typing it into the system.
Yeah, it's really easy. Yeah.
Criminal record statement. So it can go fairly quickly. And again, I'm building everything all at one time because it's actually saving me probably 3 or 4 or 5 clicks to go through the checklist when I'm building documents specifically. Let me go here. Live scan. Request for live scan services. Background checks. Here. Background checks. And I always put receive date so that it's, again, very clear that it's not the date that was done, right? I think it's the date that you guys are receiving it in your site. There we go. Please enter all of the required fields. Oh, yep, sorry. Is what I want to do. Great. Okay. So now they're all built. I don't know if you have others, but they're all here and they could be used if you want to. And if you don't, you just leave it like this and it will never be entered. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. So here now, if I go to the add edit details, let's add these fields. One thing that I think I like here on this background, I like the way it looks when it's horizontal. And of course, that is absolutely up to you guys. Like that's a preference of what do you like it to look like? So I'm just this is where now all these things are super easy because they're all written the same. I just get to click a bunch of buttons and add them all and now organize them. So I'm going to do the Department of Justice. This is kind of how I'm used to setting it up. The FBI is number 3. The FBI is number 3. The child abuse is number 4. Child abuse is number 4. The criminal receive date, I need to move this up, is number 5. Number 5. Number 6. Number 6. And I think I have it a little bit like not the date first, right? In some of my situations. Number 1. Document, 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 document. Cool. Okay. There could be other fields. When I think about background checks, I think there's like the day that you guys initiate, like you've gotten all the information from the family and now you're sending it to the proper governing bodies as like we've got that, so we're expecting everything to come in within 3 weeks or a month, right? So you can have sort of a follow-up date in case it's not, which if it's not, you need sort of a closure, or if you decide to do that, you need like a closure date, right? If you wanted reminders to check in or you want reports to if you want reports to kind of filter themselves out, you might I've talked about like statuses. So each one of these really has their own status, or some of them have their own status. Sometimes it's nice to have a wrap up of the whole thing. You might need addresses. Is there anything else, Brittany or Melissa, that you guys specifically need?
I just know for right now that when staff, well, our family developers, when they receive these clearances, they're just uploading them. We don't have anything like built into where they need to enter in additional information, nor have they requested that. So as of now, no.
Okay. Okay. So let's go now to our overview form, and I'm going to unlink. And of course, right here, we're going to end up with like all of these things where you guys might like this. I think it's going to be a little busy on the form itself, but let's take a look at this. So for Jack, something that I don't know if Madison, I know for sure in Nightlight, I've been even going into your site and trying to clean out some of test records that are mine specifically that I created for testing, whatever, clearing them out. It was real easy to see. If you label them all as tests, right? So having some sort of like agreement with teams, every last name that's going to be test, even if you have like people that have their last name actually starts, it's more easy to see that. You could write test NCA or test, however, right? Coming up with some kind of naming convention for test records, because then you can easily exclude them also in your search. This is not that type
No.
of family. That's not this type of cover page. Maybe one of these is
Oh
the
yeah, the P2P test family.
P2P. So is it this?
Yes.
Okay. So then down here on the sidebar, they get this background checks, which of course you can add icons, you can make it bigger, you can do what you want, you can reorder it, right? All of that, I think everybody knows here. And then I always like to test and make sure that I like the way that it looks. So this is going to be for Jack test. This is for Oregon because I'm here. We're entering the date. The one thing again, sort of with the checklist that I like is like the date will be automatically entered. Cool. Put that first frame in there. Press save. This is taking us into the overview. So in my world, right, the way that I'm thinking about this is like Jack test, and this is his California. I think that this is going to start to get, when you have all the fields on the overview form, it starts to look a lot really messy, especially if you had 10 here. However, that again, it's a preference. I don't think one way is right or wrong. It looks like a lot to me, but you guys may feel completely different from that. What else do you guys want to do with this then? Are you thinking that you want to move this up onto a public form?
I think the only ones that we probably would move to the public form is the ones that the family can take care of, which is the criminal record statement as well as the request for life scan services. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I did have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
For the overview page, how, because this is really busy. How would you like suggest organizing that?
I think having kind of these top level fields here, if you wanted to show the clearance documents all in one thing, but I probably wouldn't have, and putting them all in one row, I probably would not have I would keep it sort of, I like the horizontal look. If I go into my master site, I think most agencies home study page is set up like this, where it's in a, what do I call it? It's in a vertical layout, but it's shortened. And it's again, really the very high level components of the home study. And it seems to work for that type of data, because in a home study setting, you're probably only going to have like 5 records, right? And that's going to be for international adoption that took a really long time. It could be for licenses where a family has been fostering with you guys for years and years, but it's not going to be at the level of background checks or parent education or documents or communications. I think those type of records just have too much data in them. So this is a vertical layout. And if I add another one and do this as the updated home study, this is going to end up triggering a bunch of stuff. Let me cancel that. It is easy enough to see because, again, in a home study type situation, you're just not having, lots and lots of records.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since you brought up layout. When you put things into a public form like this, is there a way to squash the content? Because we have a form that we typically have them fill out. It's an approval form for a clinic to say, yes, you can share this information with us, right? And we've managed to get a lot of information on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. When we tried putting it into a public form so that they could fill it all in really quickly and then just print it out for their signature kind of thing, it was a 2-page form suddenly, and it was all like spread out to whatever. Is there a way of squishing it so that we could get it all on one page again?
Yeah, I think that's where the horizontal layout is going to come. It seems to condense better. You might also, right, because depending on the way that you're asking the fields, things like that, like the type of field that it is, it's possible that you could have a horizontal layout, and then where things make sense in a vertical layout, you add a subform based off the same table wherever that data is laid out, and it shows some things vertical. So you can play with that. That's generally subforms are used for multi-record tables. However, I have absolutely used them for layout functions. Not in your site. I'll go into my site here in the public forms. It's going to be in one of these two where I've got a lot, like this is a vertical layout, and then I've got a horizontal layout because these are multi-record though, multi-record, but then I want another vertical layout. And so while this is based on the family or wherever, like the case, something like that is what these tables are on. Generally, Sam is only going to allow these types of fields to be up here, the end. You can't put that. But I have used a subform to change the formatting.
Right. Do you see how your fonts are slightly different in the horizontal layout? They're tinier than in the vertical layout.
Yep.
Is that always the case?
Yeah, I
And
think it is. It is right now.
Can we change the size of the fonts to make them smaller?
No, not right now. No.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, I do see what you're saying, and yeah. Yeah, unfortunately not. I think that it used to be small, and this is where we used to like, oh yeah, we'll fix that for you guys. And somebody was like, it was an older person that was using the site, and they're like, I can't read the reports, I can't read anything. So
based on just this example you have here, the horizontal looks like it's a 1.5 space difference. The vertical looks like it's a two line difference.
Oh, right in between. Yeah.
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 That's what we're wanting to squish, is the in between.
Yep. And yeah, it doesn't have that sort of functionality today at all.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean, even like you could have a couple of horizontal forms. The thing that I don't love about the horizontal forms is like the fields might not line up well. But it's sort of like you can play with it. I've seen other sites where they like the horizontal form, possibly Jen, because exactly what you're talking about. But every field like this, so this section, I could even reorg this as a horizontal form and do it as multiple rows. And then if we look at it, so right now it's all together, all on one. But if I edit field positions, I can totally put these. And at first it's going to look like it's all, wait, 4, 4, 5. I'm going to put that on 5. I put that on 5, right? Because that sort of makes sense. And if I look at it, it's now smaller.
I see.
So lined up, but yeah. So that might be your option today, is to switch out.
Thank you.
Totally. And I think it's honestly, it's like a trial and error, because I sort of go between of like, what do I like? I do think if you anticipate that people are going to be filling out that form on mobile, it needs to be as narrow as possible in order to have a better experience for them doing data entry. And
you mean vertical?
Yes, it needs to be vertical, but they just need to be lined up, right? So even here, like I might actually go ahead and put this like this, right? So that they're all lined up.
Right. We don't actually encourage that, the mobile or even using iPads.
Yeah.
We find they don't work effectively.
I would agree. I think it's way too much information. I'm surprised that people actually fill out these kind of forms on that. But, you know.
And I'm sure you already know this. The other thing that we keep running into is that people don't use Chrome to do it in. When they use the Internet Explorer or even Firefox, is that right? That one, they run into problems. It does not save at their end, and it doesn't show up at ours.
Interesting. That you should let us know when you guys experience that.
We
It
experience
is,
it all the time.
yeah, it is right, because it's sort of these things like we're all experiencing it with email as well right now. Like Google and Microsoft are really changing things on their end. And so it's for every software company out there, it's this perpetual like having to keep up with the big tech people because they do it and they're not really necessarily they might even tell us and we all have to live with that, right? Because it's now we all use it every day in order to like air quotes survive, right?
But
So yeah,
consistently, we have never had a problem with Chrome.
right,
But
because it
regularly,
supposedly follows more of the like World Wide Web standards. Firefox
right.
should be also, but Internet Explorer, like they just don't. That
No, they
Microsoft
don't.
product, they don't. They do what they want because they can. So it's a lot to keep up with. But as far as formatting goes, that's what I would recommend. Let me jump back talking about background checks. So for this, Brittany, on the overview form, I would just delete out these records, the fields that you don't want to simplify
Okay.
it.
Okay. I have a question. For you know how the document upload for the FBI clearance is like kind of over to the left, like out of direct lineage
Yep,
with
like
the
they're
other
not
form.
lined up. That's what I don't love about the
Is it just the naming?
it could be, yeah, and that's the only thing that I don't love about this there. That looks sort of better, but yeah, it's
Okay.
the length that these are taking up.
Okay.
And when it becomes a multi-row on the horizontal, it doesn't want to line up as evenly. When it is a single record or excuse me, a single, what's it called? A single row? Yeah, a single row over here. When it's a single row, it lines up really well. When it's a single row with a memo, lines up really well. The multiple rows, though, it is a little fuzzy. Yeah. And it literally is just like that helped it for sure. And I don't know. Yeah, even here it's kind of goofy. Let's see if that fixes it at all or if it really makes it worse. Doesn't make it worse, it makes it about the same on the view form. That's what it looks like to me. Like this one, that also drives me crazy. And there's nothing you can do, and I can't do
Okay.
anything.
We thought there was something that we could do, but no, this makes sense why it does do that.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. So what I'm thinking next, I don't know who else on. Curious. I'm sure Heather, if you have a question, you'll ask. I don't know if you're using this stuff or not. Um, the I just see you unmute yourself.
I did.
Yeah.
I know we have it, but honestly, I don't think it's being used. It's something that I do once we have a chance to breathe,
Yeah.
to ask my group. So I will be doing that at some point.
Okay. Well, and
I'm just trying to take in as much as I can.
okay, cool. Yeah, I will put it up on like we've now, and I'll show you guys before we leave, like where all the webinars are stored. And I've done a lot of cleanup, getting rid of the wordiness of it and just putting video that you guys can kind of play with.
Good. Are these calls being recorded as well?
This is, yeah, the only
This
one we
is, okay.
are
I didn't
not
have to get a
recording.
done one.
Yep. So we're
Okay.
recording 2 a month. The only one we're not recording is the community call, just in case,
Yep.
who knows what we'll talk about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the one thing then that I would do is if you want to put this on a public form, I kind of have started to go back to the table again to build forms. It again sort of gives me this like consolidated spot. And let me ask you guys, are you guys using your family portal, Brittany? And I guess Melissa never got back on.
Yeah, she wasn't able to get back on. Right now, we are not using it because due to the merger, there was just a lot of things that we needed to work out with both processes from both of our organizations coming together. But what we're thinking, what we're doing right now is we're working on the portal build, and we're trying to roll out at least a test version to like some specific families by the ending of our fiscal year. So like June, July-ish.
Oh, of next year?
Yes.
Wow.
2021.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now we're heavily just like trying to learn and get all the things
Okay.
and yeah, our ducks in a row we're building, and then trying to get at least a prototype by January,
Okay.
a working prototype, not perfect, and then having our families, maybe a little test group, test it out in July.
Okay. Okay. So what I was going to say here is that I would come in and create a new form. And what I want to do is like, I'm going to label it. I don't know if you guys label it Family Portal, but I like when I'm building forms around the Family Portal to, again, have a naming convention that then when I look at the list of forms, I can see it. I'll show you guys another way to look at forms for a specific table, which I think is also helpful. But I'm going to just add this. And I'm going to do this as an add. They would really, your families are really going to only edit these, right? They just aren't going to be adding background checks. You guys, I would assume and would probably recommend that that is either automated through SAM or your team goes in and says, these are the background checks that we need for this family. And this one, I'm going to set this up, I guess, a little bit backwards. I'm going to set it up as a one at a time first, as an edit form. Maybe I wouldn't even show them a view form for this. I would not show that to the family. I will put it in multiple rows, and I'm not going to create a container form because I'm going to create one other form where it shows all of them and then link where it's got the edit. So on here though, I'm going to ignore this for a second. I'll have to go and set that up. But I want to make this a public form first. So I'm going to advanced options, advanced form properties, and then where it's a public form, I'm going to set it as yes. So now I will actually have different options for my after save form than I have today. I'm going to add some fields to this form. And here I'm only adding who is it for, what state is it for, and these two, the criminal record and the request, right? So I'm now choosing which ones. It's just not going to be the same. I'll put the criminal record down. Do I have this on? Let me go here. I might have to go form display properties. Let's see. Nope. Let's go edit field positions. Where did that not go? There we go. Maybe I put the wrong button. Then 3, put that in 3, put that in 1. So now I'm kind of lined up. So this is my add form. It is a public form. I'm going to go back to the background checks table. So I am regularly using this at the top to make sure I'm connected to the right thing. I'm going to create a new form. This time I'm going to call it the Family Portal, and this is going to be our background check overview. And I'll probably label it background checks again because that's the only thing that's important for the family. This time it's a multi-record. This time it's a view form. I'm probably going to do single row. I will, because I don't know how you guys want to build this, I am going to go ahead and create a container form for it. So remember, all subforms that are multi-record have to be on a greater form. They don't exist by themselves. So there's either a container form or the container form is like the Family Portal cover page. Okay. On public forms, this might be a good option for you, is to hide it if it doesn't exist. So a really good example of that would be an adoption record or a post-adoption reports. It just doesn't even appear to the family unless they exist. And background check records, I think, could be the same thing. It's like, no need to show it to them if it doesn't exist. For here on the overview, I might just have the couple of fields of who is it for and for what state. Maybe that's all I want to show them. So now on this form, I never set this as a public form, so I'm going to go do that. And then I'm going back to the main form, and under form properties, I'm going to, we're not going to have an add form, right? Because we don't want them to add it, but I will have an edit record for them. And I certainly could have a record details form. The challenge that I feel like with that is for a family is I wouldn't put the document upload field there, the document file link, I think is what it's called. I wouldn't add that because they can't download it. So it'll be confusing. I think it takes them, either maybe says they don't have access or it takes them to like the SAM login screen. So it's like, it will be confusing. So I'm just wanting to show them what I want to show them. And then this is my family portal edit form. I want to go here, and after the SAM form is done, I want to take them to the family portal background checks other page, this page. But let me go to edit field names. This form is currently also not set as a public form, which is why it's not showing up in my options. So I'm going to set this as a public form, and then I'll be able to be taken back to it. So here I'm going to refresh this page, and family portal background checks overview container. So then what it would look like, I'm going to go to your public form, and over here on your landing page, I might have a sidebar link for the background checks. And put in a checklist, I guess. That'll work. I don't know if your stuff's small or large. And then I'm connecting them here to that container form. So, Brittany, does Jack have a password?
I do not think so.
Do you guys have a spot where you are adding the password just for for testing? Really, you shouldn't really do their passwords.
I don't know. That's something I'm not aware of.
Okay, so I'm gonna build something else that I think is super helpful, and it is another form. I'm gonna start from the form customizer. I'm gonna build it on the family, and I'm gonna build it on the case. And I like this where it's just record details. So I've added this to my site, view and edit form. I'm going to connect it there. It's not a public form. And all I put on here are all of those fields that are like those audit fields. So I kind of look by entered by, entered date, entered through form, entered the case, who entered it, the case ID, the F for ID. That's not going to work. I'm going to go over here and look for family ID and login password, right? So keeping it super simple. It's linked to this. So edit field positions, I'm going to just stick the login password down at the bottom. And now on this form, you'll have one other field here. Why is it? I'm going to do this. I've had it do this before. Let me regenerate, see if that works. Refresh. Does it want to work? Of course not. Okay, I'll go back to it. I'll fix it for you guys. I just need a password real quick. So I just want to like shove it on something. I'm going to put it on parent too, and then you guys can go and take it off, or I'll take it off before we leave. just so I can get in here and fiddle with this really quick. There it is.
While you're fiddling, any update on 2Passwords?
No, there's no update. I mean, we're still working on this background process, which is like updating the release in order for that to work more efficiently. So we're sort of in this spot where we have every site has its own website, its own database, and it's making the more clients we have a longer release process, so it's not efficient. And that's sort of our challenge, is how to make that efficient before we can do that work, before we can really get back to what do we want to build in the site. Okay, let me drop out of some of these things really quick. I'll figure that out in a little bit. Jack, settings. I just want to log in as him. That's all I want to do so that we can look at the background checks. Jack, grab his email. Okay. So, now there is this new background check section here, right? So because, I don't know if everybody remembers, I know Brittany probably remembers, they decided they don't want to use the checklist, or at least not for now. And so we can use a form to do the same thing instead. So when I click on here, I'm seeing the data that I've allowed. And you would tell your families, go here. Of course, you will change wording like that, but then go in for Oregon and you need to fill out the things that are there, which, you're going to say, yes, I got it done today. And here's my document. I was going to say, that'll go in there and enter today's date, whatever today is. Okay. Like even here, you might not want to allow the state to be here. You might not, you might show their name so that they remember who it's for, but maybe you don't show the state. If I go back here, it's going to take us back to this. Right here, as the family, we're not getting a visual that we've got it done. So maybe we want to show the date there for the things that we want them to complete. You might also have on this container form 2 separate sections for those that are in state and those that are out of state. Jen, it is harder for Nightlight to do this, but I did come up with a way where you end up basically having another field that's sort of a administrative field on the background checks, where it's like in state versus out of state. And so when the family's adding the application form and they're adding their out of state checks, those automatically set as out of state. And if Sam automates some and says, well, it's the family state, when the application is received and the family first name is entered, I'll show you guys the auto action that I have. Is this my master site? So that instead of me just saying it out loud, I'll show it to you. I think that'll be helpful. I automate the background checks to show up for parent 1 and parent 2, like when the application is received. It can be when the fee is received, whenever, right? That part doesn't really matter. But where the family's first name is entered, parent 1 first name is entered, I'm going to insert a background check where the state equals the family state. And it would add another field that says this is their in-state check. Right? Or the family's main state, not their out-of-state checks. And that's a way that you can separate when, like in Nightlight's case, you guys work in so many states that it becomes difficult. It's a way to get around that. And nobody knows it's there except for the system, really. Like it's just not something that you need to see, but administrators need to know how to do that.
Right.
And so I think for both Madison and for Sierra or for Stanford Sierra that are on today, both of you work in that specific state. So for Stanford, Sierra, it's going to be California are your in-state checks. And for Madison, you guys are over in Massachusetts, right?
So we for Stanford Sierra, we have California, but then we also have an office in Nevada.
Oh,
Yeah, and so it's still considered our our main office is in California, but like our sister office where families can also come through is in Nevada as well.
okay.
So we have mainly Nevada and California, but we also require, so if the family has said that they have lived out of the state within 5 years, California is making us require an Adam Walsh clearance.
Okay. On the California state or on those out of state clearances?
Out of state. So yeah, if they've lived out of state, they have to fill out an Adam Walsh
Mm-hmm.
release clearance form, basically stating that like they're able to we're able to request background checks from that state that they lived in outside of California
Right.
within those last like 5 years.
Gotcha. And so that is, do you guys, I don't know how much time y'all want to spend. I save an hour and a half for this one. We've got 20 minutes. I could totally build that function into this where again, I think then for you guys too, because if somebody lives today in California, but they lived in Nevada out of state, Nevada is going to be their out of state.
Mhm.
So I think that I'm absolutely going to implement it in my master site. And I think I would recommend that for on your application form when you're entering in your out of state checks that it auto sets that it's out of state. And that is the filter now that you use to separate into two separate subforms, right? So this is our in-state subform right now. Today it's just one thing, but if we have a secondary for out of state, and Oregon then would be in that separate section, which has a separate edit form, exactly the same way I built it, but as a separate edit form, a new one, right? Where it's got the Adam Walsh on there. You're not going to have it for California, but you are going to have it for any out of state in the last 5 years.
I like that. Is that the auto action that you just showed?
Yeah, so that would be here. I don't think that I have in my site. I don't think that I built it an in or out of state. I did build it for another agency the other day. So I'm talking like in or out of state check and setting it as like, I would probably do like a radio button list and do in state or out of state. So I'm going to create a new list, set the values of that. And then let's do background checks and in or out of state. And then add in or out of state. So I'm going to go to my list. Oh, not there. I'm going to go to the list itself and do in state and then add out of state. Oops, come here. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my background check and set it as it will also enter this. And so there's a couple of settings, right? Because it's like, well, where are these things being entered? If you have an auto action, then you can set it. Or if they are entering it on your application form, right? So now I would go to my application form here, and I think it's on this one. Not on this one. It is then on this one, I guess. And at the end, where have you lived since 18 or 5 years old? Right here, I'm going to add an automatically entered field value. And I'm going to tell it every single time that the background check needs to say it's an out of state. These are all going to be our out of state ones because that's what we're doing. I would also go back to this and show only the out of state. So if they come back to the form, they'll still only see the out of state checks. In or out of state equals out of state. So they're either going to see nothing because they haven't entered it yet, or they're only going to see the out of state if they have to come back and fill out the application later to get the address or whatever. Here, do I have, who is it for? That's what I'd rather have that, I think, than this app 1 or app 2. I don't love this anymore. I think I like it being more clear. Okay. Does that part make sense? There's a little bit of settings. I'm totally happy to help you guys set that up, but to the family, they are not seeing that value being entered. But Sam knows because we know where we're offering that information for them to be seeing that. And that would allow then on the background checks here, some separation. And again, you're going to have a sub form that's based only around in or out of state equals out of state. This one will end up being set as in state. And then you have a separate form that's like background checks for in state is what we built here. And then you'll have a background checks for out of state, which will be built. It will be connected to the sub form that's for the out of state. Like, I can't see anybody's faces. Heather's unmuted. Do you have questions?
No, I was just going to respond before about your question about Madison. So we are, our headquarters are in Delaware. That's where I am. But we also have an office in Illinois.
Oh.
And we are also licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Okay.
So we're 4 states.
So yeah, so you guys do have sort of the similar challenge, right? So this is actually a necessary thing. So, I mean, you guys, we will need to build it. So my thought is I'm going to end up doing background checks probably in Q1, right? Of the next year. So when you guys feel like you're ready, you can rewatch this, but we'll also, I think the get it done. Like we just built out stuff for Sierra. It's great for free. And it's learning for me too. And it's super helpful for other people. So there's just so much that can be done with it. It just requires you guys to sort of decide, what do you want? I really like that. I think that's a very clean way to show that. And now I've just changed the wording so that we don't see all of this. Brittany, do you want me to sort of like implement the subforms? Would that be helpful for you, Jen, to see that?
Yeah, I learn as we go along. I do have a question, which is kind of sidereal. I can certainly see having set up the family portal, and especially when you need things like background checks, how vital it is for certain departments and organizations. But a question was put to me the other day, and I would like to ask you it. Yeah. What are the pros and cons of doing a family portal versus just a checklist? Like, why would you, I guess, other than if the department is a small department, if the department is only maybe 2 sites as opposed to 10 sites like we have, why would we want that small department to go to a family portal style versus staying kind of more closed, shall we say?
Yeah.
What's the pros and cons of going one over the other?
I think that having a family portal sort of like, it gives like a landing spot, and the checklists are only, I think, are most valuable for the documents. They don't give any other additional information. And I think like, I think you've maybe been on where Steve is talking about his forms. He just never liked it. And that's a total like a preference for for him. He never liked the checklist or didn't understand when he first started and built things out in forms. So he finds that it's easier to share forms with his team and his families rather than have the checklist. So the family portal is like a landing spot where whether or not you connect to the checklist, even that's an option. You may decide, I don't like the checklist or I only like the checklist, but the family portal can relay to the family, like who's working on your case? Where are you at in the case? We've added before communications. I am going to talk probably in December about how you add supplemental documentation because I've been setting that up for people. Things that aren't in the regular flow of the checklist. They're just incidentals, or I need this updated or that. And so having a separate spot for like, we might have a field for auto insurance, but really they've got 2 cars and a boat. Well, now are you like, how do you get the right number of checklist items for that? Or do your families zip all those files up? Just telling them if you've got more than 1 car, you can go down this other section, choose document to choose auto insurance and upload additional auto insurances there. Then it's all, it's like could be a little easier for the family if they have just single documents. They don't know how to technically pull it all together.
Okay.
Yeah. Like you guys, Nightlight's using it like post-adoption reports are done through there so they can see their entire post-adoption report schedule. And then we actually, same concept, right? So I started this talk about background checks are multi-record tables. They function just like other reports. So in Nightlight's site, we've got what I was about to do this setup is having, instead of in-state and out-of-state, they've got post-adoption reports that are self-reports versus post-adoption reports that are social worker reports. And so it links here, the different edit forms are different. I think I actually did this for Lifeline also, same concept with the post-adoption reports, and they have different edit forms because the self-report is a much longer, like 10 pages to the form versus where it's a social worker form, they're giving just enough information so that the social worker has like the kid's last exam and some of the updates so they can do their job more effectively there. They don't have to get all that information there. They can maybe spend more time being more conscious about what's going on instead of just doing data entry on the spot with the family. So I think it depends on what you want to share back with that family. I'm also thinking about like how to update contacts because the social worker or the home city provider or whoever may change. So having a list on the side that's got the phone numbers and that kind of stuff, giving them family information.
I think all the departments except for one use the portal.
Yeah, I've just done a big thing with the foster care program, setting that up for them, a portal.
Yeah, it makes sense for domestic, international, and foster. The Snowflakes department is the only one that doesn't use it. So we were discussing the pros and cons, and so it's good to have your feedback and see what you thought. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is, it's a single spot instead of like even thinking through like the emails that you send, and it may not apply, right? So but the emails you send, if you're taking them to a link that's the application form and then they give that back, and now you send a different link for the checklist, some of your templates could be simplified having a single link. You always take them to the family portal and you tell them where to go from there. It could also provide other resources because it's like a sort of like a web page. You can link off to other information that might be valuable to that family. And you got, I mean, we haven't even talked about this, but, and I don't know where the right line is, but like when they're done being a family, they're really used to, or like when they're done with their process, like, can you ever offer them donation links or other event links, like other things about your organization to really keep them engaged? Do they want to become a mentor at some point in time? Those kind of things.
Oh, very interesting. Now, those two things that caught my interest because I know the person who asked the question that will appeal to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good feedback.
Okay.
Jen, this is Heather. I wanted to add too that as I created a home study checklist, I guess about 1.5 years ago, and it is very long.
Mm-hmm.
And then earlier this spring, I created for like new clients coming on board, just the information that we need to get out to them that they download on their side and print and send in kind of thing. That is a checklist. Those are checklists as well. But it's very lengthy, like you can't put like sections. So, if it's all on one case, then the checklist is all together and you can't really create sections so that I know of. You can hide them, I guess, once they're done, the certain parts of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it is just, it's very, very lengthy for them, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I do recommend, like, I think you guys, Sierra, even though they're not using it, is what it sounds like, this is about the max that I would like to see in a section. If it is more than this, I feel like it is a lot. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would certainly make sure if any of this is like for parent 2, if there is no parent 2, make sure you've got the filter so that it doesn't show up unless, right, there is a parent 2 name in there, so they don't have to overlook anything.
Correct.
But then also, like, coming in here, well, none of this section is doesn't have the I. Nothing is shown to the family here, but there's that I where you can hide it. Yeah, I do like, these folks aren't on, but I set up their checklist yesterday or something. And it's early. She's still very early in it, but we're very small, very, very small things. And I keep even just the contract, just set that out in its own section. I think there's something about having the breakup. Let me say this. Let me see if I can log into the test family. Who's their test family? This and copy. And let me go over here and to the family portal. Oh. So when I log in here and go to the checklist, and now I don't remember for Madison, but I can definitely see for Stanford Sierra, you don't have my updated like layout and kind of what this looks like, but I think the green or whatever, like Nightlight's color is blue or something like that, like a teal, having that distinguishment sort of helps with the visual in this. There is another, and so I can add, like I can update your site if you want it to be updated to have like your specific color, whatever your color is, so that it's clearer. Like I noticed that here somewhere, I have too much stuff up now. Where am I? That's me. Am I here? I need to get back to that. Where's your page? Where is the page? Oops, Shift T. I want that one. I don't need that. I don't think I need that. I don't really need that. Here, wonder if I can go back to the family portal. It's very like white, right? So it's just it doesn't have as much depth, and like your eyes don't want to track through because right we read so much information, we don't want to see it, we don't want to read anymore. So I think the colors or an icon, things like that will help support scrolling to get down to further information. And I think probably for you, Heather, is like breaking up the checklist section a little bit more. If it's over 10, 13 steps, our eyes are already sort of overwhelmed by the amount of steps in the process.
Yeah, Melissa and I, we were talking about like the design and how we wanted the portal to look, and we definitely noticed that.
Yeah, okay.
I think we didn't talk about adding in the blocks that you have right here. But no, I'm gonna bring that to her attention and yeah,
Okay.
we'll decide.
Yeah, and I mean, like this page, like whether you guys like this image or not, like all of that's totally subjective, right? But and I like it looks terrible with her logo right here. And in my opinion, that logo is probably a little too big also. But this is kind of our like, here's a Canva image that we like. We can switch them out. Like you could do whatever you want, but having some sort of like imagery to it, I think is really helpful. So like, Jen, I had I don't think we've done anything with this. This is actually just taking you to the same page, but it should be like another page where it's like another image and all the detailed stuff about the program that you might want to share.
Yeah. Do you have any, I don't know, example portals that we could look at to, I don't know, to persuade, in one direction or another, whether they really want to go with this or not? Because I know that they could probably look up the others, granted, but I think that it would benefit them to see other styles of portals.
Yeah, I don't, but it's a great idea. And what I will probably do is like, if it would be okay if we showed Nightlight, I'll ask this agency here. I'll ask, me and Jess can also set out, I'll ask people. Generally, it's great to share and people really are sharing, and I can create a guide and I'll send that out. I think it's a great idea. Like we've done some on different videos, but like, again, like which video is it? Like, who knows? So I'll add some images.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like when you go to a site, when they're offering you, we'll web design your site for you. Here's different options. Pick the one you want, kind of thing. That would be nice in relationship to a portal idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think like we are honestly trying to keep it simple because we are sort of constrained. Once you have a sidebar, you're constrained. And because people will absolutely look on it on mobile, it needs to be in a certain width so that it sort of fits right now, today. It's got to be in some constraints. So you're sort of stuck with like, do you want an image or do you just want messaging? But you can have things like I've got communications down here. You could have imagery down here. Your icons can be icons or not icons. You could not have a sidebar. I don't know if that'll work that well. It won't work as well. I think you do if you want to like connect to a checklist and other information. It's better, especially when you want them to fill out forms. I was thinking like, can you have links in here? I don't know that that's going to work. So you sort of are stuck with that. But then it's what image do you want? And we've got different images, but even that, I doubt anybody's using our images because they're not branded. So,
right.
But yeah, like MLJ, even though they've been acquired by Nightlight, like their checklist had icons, really bright, colorful color branded icons that I really liked. And it broke up the checklist section so that you just naturally wanted to scroll down. Like I do think if the checklist items there are too many checklist items, I think people get overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think thanks you guys so much. It was like really a good call, Brittany, I did not go and build the other sub form to separate that out. I don't know. Maybe you want to tell me you want it and through support, and I can go and put that in.
Yeah, let me run it
Yeah.
by Melissa.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and then we will also reference back to your guys to the video so that we can look at the auto action for that one as well. The auto action that you created to
Yeah.
automatically.
Yeah. While you guys are on, I guess last bit of feedback for me would be, what do you guys want to talk about in upcoming calls? Are there things like, we haven't talked about auto actions a lot because who knows what people want, but I could absolutely create them. And if people had them, I'm happy to talk about that. I'm happy to talk about reports. Those things to me are more beneficial if we have a report we're trying to build or a auto action we're trying to do. They would be better. Like, I think it'll stick for people more. But if you guys have ideas, we're more than happy to hear. Otherwise, I'm sort of going off of my whims or what I'm talking to people about in support anyways.
Auto actions, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah.
I think maybe going through all of the different options on that.
Okay.
When you go to settings and you have each of these categories, I think going over all of them would be really good, honestly.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. And then we could have the get it done. That totally makes sense. Yeah. So like sort of setting you up for 2021 with like, we're not going to do this all by manual, use auto actions. Sounds great. I love that one.
Yeah.
I have all these great fun imagery now going in my head for what that looks like. So cool. I will totally talk about auto actions because it really does save a lot of time to not have to do the data entry. That's the goal, is like, how do you get it in without having to do it? So
yeah.
Cool, you guys. Well, thank you so much for your interactivity and for just coming and supporting us. We're glad to support you. If you have questions, everybody knows how to reach me.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.